Good morning, everybody. How are we all this very bright, fine and sunshiny day down here in Dorset? My name is Ali Board. I'm an artist, an art tutor and an author. And this morning I am broadcasting live via Facebook as part of my Technique Tuesday. And I'm also enjoying a cup of coffee while I'm at it as well. Now, just in case this is your first time with Technique Tuesday, this is a broadcast I try to do as many Tuesdays in the year as I possibly can, and I will bring you something that I am working on. So at the moment we are in part 5 today of my bee project. I've been sharing it with you over the last couple of weeks, and we're working through it very slowly, and we're doing that so that you get to understand my thought processes a little bit more. I'm hoping that in kind of me verbalizing what's going on in my head, it will help you to make some decisions yourself about your own art projects and hopefully help you to become a more self-sufficient painter. Now, if you are watching this live and you're in Facebook right at the moment, then we have a facility for us to be able to chat to each other. I usually see most people's comments come in. I do miss the odd one, but we've built up this rather lovely community, haven't we, of people kind of meeting each other for a coffee and a catch up of a Tuesday morning. Now, what I try to do as much as I possibly can is to give you a bit of a shout out because you've taken the time and the trouble to tune in live. So it's nice to say hello, and I know that there are people all over the world who tune in, and I'm very grateful for that, because whilst it's 10 o'clock here in the UK, it could be the middle of the night or extremely early in the morning somewhere where you are. So shall we see who is in the room? Who gets the award today? Janet gets the award for first comment of the day. Well done, Janet. Closely followed by Martina. Jill is in the room too. Anne, Joe, Rabina, how's your move going? Maureen, Patricia, Steph. Steph is saying, good morning, Ali, on time for a change and Wi-Fi not playing up. Good to know. Good to know. Kathy, good morning. Julie is saying, yippee, it is Tuesday, best day of the week. Hello to you all. You are a sweetheart, Julie. Linda P, good morning. Joe, Linda, Jean, Anna, good morning, Anna. Heather, Janice, you've just moved as well, haven't you? Lots of people moving around. I hope you're settling in very well. Rachel, the lovely, glorious Rachel is in the room too. Anne, good morning. Now, what's Anne saying? Looking forward to more inspiration from Ali this morning. Hope I live up to that, Anne. Rosemary. Rosemary is saying she's in Copenhagen. That's very exotic. I mean, it's exotic in comparison to Dorset, isn't it? Anyway, it's exotic. Sandy, Jilly, Jane, good morning. Rosie is in France and saying some sunshine at last. Lynn is in my favourite place. Lynn is in a caravan in St David's. Lynn, I love St David's. White Sands Bay. Go, straight away. It's just beautiful. Sue is saying, good morning from Perth in Scotland, loving the Port Merion mug. This was given to me by my lovely friend Dee, and I have my coffee in it every morning. I love Port Merion. Janet saying, yay, I got the award. Jane, Lynn, Linda says, Ali, you look so refreshed. Bless you. I do feel it this morning. Nicole is saying, morning from South Africa. Good morning. What time is it where you are? Susie is listening while working, and Rabina is saying, desperate to be with you this morning because she needs some art. Well, let us hope that I can fill that gap for you. So, shall we crack on with this? Last week was a knotty one, wasn't it? Last week was a lot of conversation about materials and colours and why I choose the colours that I do. So, shall we take you to the overhead camera? Because my project's had a little bit of a change. I lived with it over the weekend and made some decisions. So, let's take you to the overhead cam, and I'll take you through the decisions that we did. Rosie is saying, help please, comments are underneath, how do I get them to go to the right? I don't know what device you're on, Rosie, but I'm sure somebody in the room will help. Nicole is saying it's 11 a.m. where she is. Tricia is saying good morning too. Lovely to have you all here. So this is the folder. This is the bee folder of doom. This is where I have kept everything that I've been working on in the last few weeks. So in this folder, oh God, sticky tape everywhere. In this folder, are all of the line drawings, the tracings, the notes that I made, notes about my broadcast, all of those kind of things. And I keep them like this because if I decide to make some changes to my project, or if I decide to make this project into a workshop, which it isn't likely to happen with this simply because it's so involved, but I might do a different version of this. So I try to keep all of my line drawings all together. And then that way, if I need to replicate anything, I'm not trying to sort of rifle through anything. So I've got that folder there. That is where we started. And then eventually, of course, we ended up with our line drawing. And this is the sort of the final line drawing that we had. Now, there are some changes. Ooh, Tracy's in the room. Morning, lovely. Oh, long time no see. Now, these, there have been some changes since this line drawing, which I'll take you through in a minute. Nobody panic. But this was the line drawing that we were basing our project on. And so I was messing about with that over the weekend too. Now this, oh, it's like Blue Peter, this, isn't it? If you're not in the UK, you don't know what Blue Peter is, you'll have no idea what I'm talking about. Cultural references, don't you love them? Now, this is the colour chart that we worked on last week, because what we were trying to work out was what order we potentially paint things in and what materials we might use for that. Morning, Janice. Morning, Chris. Lovely to have you all here. And what I was doing is trying to work through, do I use watercolour? Do I use gouache? And then I was testing everything out on this page and looking at colour theory and looking at introducing a little bit of brusho, all of those types of things. So this was kind of what was going on in my head manifesting itself on the paper. And I agree, it was a lot to take in. And I know some of you had a bit of a panic going, am I supposed to know all of this stuff? No, of course you're not supposed to know all this stuff. It's my job to know all this stuff on behalf of all of you. And then what happens is that I can say it out loud. You can keep this recording. You can store it somewhere in the back of your head to be referred to later. Steph, what's Steph saying? The path down to White Sands Bay, is that where you took your photo of the textured rocks we worked on a while ago? Steph, yes, it was. And I've done many a painting from that view. It's beautiful, isn't it? Sarah's saying morning as well. Valerie, good morning. Anne is saying great to be able to watch live this week. Lovely to have you here. Corrine is in the room, and lots of people helping out with tech. Thank you very much indeed. Barbara in sunny Norfolk. So this was where we got to last week, and I think everybody needed to lie down in a dark room. But I have to say, propping this up in the corner of my studio, having a look at it over the weekend and having a think about it, because sometimes, particularly with a project that is incredibly involved like this one, you want to sort of live with it. Yeah, you want to kind of think to yourself, you want to prop it up somewhere. You don't have to like all of your projects straight away. You don't have to make decisions about them all straight away. Sometimes what you want to do, prop up all the information that you have somewhere where it's just going to catch your eye. And that's exactly what happened with me. Now, I have to say, it's not that I propped it up in the studio and it caught my eye. I had a bit of an epiphany whilst I was driving back from our little mini break that we took over the weekend. I was stuck in traffic and thinking about much more interesting things than the queue of traffic that was in front of me. And I was thinking about ultimately what I want to happen with my painting. Now, somebody has actually expressed an interest in my painting in terms of potentially buying it. Now, I have said to that person that they have every right to let me get to the end of it and then decide not to buy it. But it has made me think a little bit more about the end result, okay? Now, it's a dangerous thing to do, to think about the end result, because you can weight your project with far too much expectation. So I'm just unsticking this as I go. And so you do sometimes do what I call put a painting on a pedestal, where you're going, oh, it's going to look like this and this and this. And it can be dangerous. So I've given myself a little bit of a let out by going, well, I tell you what, you make sure that you're happy with my piece before you potentially purchase it. Now, why did that have an effect? That had an effect because I decided to change the surface that I was going to work on. And the surface that I'm going to work on for this project, I'll come back to the line drawing in a moment, is this piece of paper. This is called Two Rivers watercolor paper. Now I know, okay, before you put into the comments, that's a very expensive paper. I know it's a very expensive paper. Good morning, Joe. I am very, very lucky that I am able to afford nice bits of watercolour paper. But let me talk you through why I've chosen this. I've chosen it because they're all handmade, these pieces of paper, and it's got a very beautiful, what's called a decal edge. It's where it comes out of the mould. And I was thinking, if this painting is a success, then it would be nice to do something called float mounting. And float mounting is where you don't put a mount over the top of the edge of your piece of work so that it kind of crops. You put a mount next to the edge of your piece of work so that you can see this beautiful decal. And I thought, oh, actually, that would be quite a nice way of presenting it. So that was my first thought. My second thought was the fact that this is incredibly beautiful to work on. And I thought, you know what? I've invested an awful lot of time and effort into this project. I am worth painting on a surface that I'm going to really enjoy working on, that is going to allow me to float the colour on the surface for a long, long time. And I'm going to be able to get the finest version of what I do replicated on this paper. So I'm going to treat myself and start my project on this surface. Now, Heather has said the SAA do a good price. Yes, the SAA do a good price. And if you pop over to my blog post, which I will tell you about later, then I've put a link on there to the Two Rivers paper. Now, the Two Rivers paper comes in varying weights, okay? Now I've gone for the heaviest weight. This is £300. This is super, super thick. It's like really heavy duty cardboard. Why have I gone for it that heavy? I've gone for it that heavy because then I don't have to stick it down. I don't have to stretch it. I don't have to worry about it warping or buckling or doing all of those things. So I have gone for, in my opinion, the kind of the best version of materials. So, Anita's in the room. Good morning. Anita, artist in residence at the SAA. That was good timing, wasn't it? Lovely to have you here, Anita. And it looks like a couple of you have got some tech issues that are being helped with in the room. Don't you love our little hive mind where we help each other out? It's awesome, isn't it? So I had this piece of paper. So this is Quarter Imperial. I've just got to find my line drawing where I stashed it away. So I thought, right, this is brilliant. It's a nice Quarter Imperial size. It's kind of a manageable size. But look what happens when I put my original bee drawing on there. It doesn't look right compositionally. There's kind of too much space around it. And you don't hear me say that very often because ordinarily I quite like there to be a lot of space around my subject matter. But of course, in this instance, we don't want there to be a disconnection between the outside edge of our piece of paper and the subject itself. We don't want it to look like it's sort of plonked in the middle, all right? So I thought, oh, okay then, well, that's all right. I'll blow it up. I'll increase the size of it ever so slightly. So I went over to, I'm getting the right stuff up here. I went over to my printer, which is a copier as well, and I enlarged it. Now, I enlarged it to 115%. Now, I'd like to be able to tell you that there was a lot of maths involved in that. There really wasn't. I randomly chose 115% increase on it, and it happened to be about right. So look at the difference now. That is it as it was originally on the piece of A4 paper. And then 115% has brought it up to this size. So you can see it's got a much better relationship. It's got a better ratio ratio of B to background, unlike this one, which has a little bit too much background and not quite enough B. But it's not so big that I've kind of lost the aesthetic of that illustration. So I was very, very happy. Now I used trace down to get it onto my surface. So this stuff, graphite transfer paper, graphite on the back, plain on the front. And what I did was, as you can see, I tacked this down and I slid my piece of trace down underneath and did a transfer with a coloured biro. Morning, Mum. You can probably see where I did that. Now we have, back in Technique Tuesday, we have the return of close-up camera so that you can see exactly, you can see my purple lines went over the top of my black and white copy, and I did my transfer that way. So nice and in close up. So I did my transfer, but then of course I scuppered myself because I thought, oh well, I don't really want to be drawing very beautifully constructed hexagons freehand when I have my stencil, which we talked about in one of the previous broadcasts. But of course I used, when I did the original version, I used the largest hexagon to be able to construct bits of my background, and then of course never thought it through. Of course now my hexagon is too small for the rest of it, so I've had to do a bit of a compromise, and whilst when it was blown up the hexagons were slightly bigger, I've actually reverted back to the ones in the stencil. So what does that mean? What that means, so it's very long-winded, wasn't it? What that means is I've ended up with this. Now, what you can hopefully see is the fact that, like I said, it's got a much better ratio of B to background. And I'm actually very pleased with that. I'm pleased with the fact that it kind of gets close to the edge, but not quite. I'm pleased with the fact that it's not completely symmetrical. You've got a bit of the odd thing here and there that doesn't quite match up. I've redrawn back in with my stencil to get those hexagons back on. I might add some more, haven't quite decided yet. Not overly enthusiastic about this combination down here. Maybe I'll add one more. I don't know is the answer to that yet. I'm still got that kind of thing floating in the back of my head. Now, if I take you back to close-up camera, what you can see is that where the trace down is used, particularly over this texture, and you can see it's got quite a heavy texture, this Two Rivers paper, which might scupper me with some of the things, but there's going to be a payoff, isn't there? Because I know it's going to accept watercolour and gouache and all the things we talked about last week. I know it's going to accept them really beautifully. So where I've got the trace down over the surface, it's a little bit hit and miss. We've got a few scuff marks in places, but it's done it okay. So now what I need to do is to work on this drawing so that it's all ready to paint, and then we can get cracking on the painting next week. Now, I've got a couple of things to hand here. I've got a putty eraser and I've got a plastic eraser. Now, this might not look like your ordinary plastic eraser. That is because this is a battery eraser. Now, a putty eraser, there are several different kinds of putty eraser on the market. My particular favourite are the grey kneadable ones because you can get them to a really nice point if you want to. I do like this Lyra one because it's got a little box, and I'm a sucker for things that are kept in something, and it keeps it clean as well, because years and years and years ago I did used to have a spaniel that used to like putty erasers and chewing them up. I think she used to think it was chewing gum, so I've sort of got that in the back of my head all the time, so I don't really want to end up with my very nice putty eraser down a Jack Russell, so I've got it in a box like that. Now, what is the putty eraser for? Putty eraser is for lifting off the graphite. It's not necessarily for erasing it, it's for picking it off. So you use it a little bit differently. So for example, where I've got a few scuff marks, let's see if we can see those in close-up cam. So here you can see I've got a few little scuff marks where the top of the surface of the watercolor paper has hit the trace down, and I don't want it to be grubby. I want it to be nice and clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the putty eraser. I'm not rubbing backwards and forwards, I'm picking at the surface to pull away any of the graphite that I don't like. Over here I've got a really, you can see that actually just in the normal camera, I've got a really kind of big scuff mark, so we'll get rid of that. If you've got any fine detail that you're thinking, well, I want to use a putty eraser but there's a tiny little space in there, then this is why a kneadable eraser is really good, because you can knead it to a point and then get in amongst all of the detail. Now I'm not going to do all of it today because that's very boring for you to watch. I can work on that another time, but that is essentially what a putty eraser is for. Very different from a plastic eraser, because a plastic eraser is going to erase it completely. Now, why would I use a battery eraser instead of just a normal block eraser, or one of the type that I'm looking over in my pot, but I can't see my very, very fine eraser that I have. Yes, here it is. Yes, of course you could use that. You can use, this is made by Tombow. These are very good erasers actually, where you could get in amongst and pick out any detail that you didn't like. But battery eraser, I mean, A, it's too much fun, and B, you can really get down into the nitty gritty. Now, up here, I've got a mark in my hexagon that I don't particularly like. It's in the wrong place. It's when I was trying to plot out doing the hexagons freehand, and so it's a bit scrappy. Now, I could, of course, put a great big block eraser in there and erase it, but I would be concerned of erasing things that are around that. So with a battery eraser, this has got a little button on the top. There's several of these on the market. This is my particular favourite. This is made by J-Car. Got 2 AA batteries in it, and you can get replacements for these heads. So you pop it in, and then you, I use my index finger. There you go, you can hear it. Okay, and that way I can be editing and erasing bits of my lines. Now what this does tend to do is throw up dust, but of course that's what your putty eraser's for. Look, you can pick that off, and I can be working in to erase elements of this that I don't particularly like. So we will carry on editing all of that. Again, I can do that at another time. If you want to clean this, I would suggest that you just rub it on. I've got a bit of masking tape down here that I use to clean it up. You can also use a piece of sandpaper to do it. But of course that does literally chip away at the eraser. Now Chris is and Rosie both are saying that it actually sounds like a bee. Yeah, it sounds like a demented bee, doesn't it? There we go. So I can be much more detailed with this. Now, if I really wanted, lots of people are saying it sounds like an angry bee. If I wanted to be very careful with this, what I could do is go back over everything and pencil it all back in, but I'm not going to do that. Why am I not going to do that? I have drawn this thing enough times now. I think this is probably the 5th or 6th time that I've drawn it. I'm good now. I'm done. I know where stuff needs to be. There's a familiarity with it now. I don't need to go back over it in pencil. What I do need to do is lighten some of the lines, and that's where my putty eraser comes into being. I can make some of my lines paler. Look at the state of that already. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I have something else planned for this drawing. If you were thinking to yourself, oh crikey Ali, I'm making it a bit pale, so how am I going to know where stuff needs to be? There's always a bee pun in there, isn't there? How am I going to know where stuff needs to be if I can only just see my pencil lines? I'll tell you. I'm actually going to ink over all of my lines before I start painting. Why am I going to do that? I'm going to do that so that no matter what happens to this drawing, those lines are going to be underneath, all there, ready. I can fill them in, I can work next to them, I can do all sorts of stuff, and I don't have to worry about my drawing. Now, what am I going to use for that? It would be very, very tempting, wouldn't it? Let's flip it over. We'll use the back of this, shall we, to test theories out before we do them. It would be so tempting to take one of these types of pens, a black fine liner, morning Nuala, and go over some of the lines. Let's do it up here. Let's use a black pen. So this is, look at the state of this, covered in gouache. Oh, I don't look after my stuff, do I? Anita will be having a fit. This is a Uni Pin pen. I really like the Uni Pin pens, but they are by no means the only brand on the market. I also like the Faber-Castell ones. I've used many of these throughout the years. This is made by the Mitsubishi Pen Company. I use these a lot just simply because they last a long time. One of the things that I am terrible at is pressing too hard with my pens and then I split the nibs. These ones allow me to be a little bit more heavy-handed, and therefore you know, I'm not nice to my materials. They get put through the ringer a bit. So in order for the nib not to split the minute that I lean on it, that's why I particularly like the Uni Pin. Morning, Trisha. So this is a 0.4 and this is black, and it goes over the top of this Two Rivers paper really rather well. Yes, I'm going to have a challenge with the texture on it. That is my compromise. If I press too hard on it, I'm never going to get a straight line or a smooth line. Let's show you those in close-up camera so that you can see what I'm talking about. See, if I press too hard, you watch how the pen kind of skips across the surface. I'm not going to get a nice smooth line, but if I lessen that a little bit, I can get a much better version of it. So I'm going to go over all of my bee drawing in pen, but, and here's where I'm hoping Technique Tuesday helps you out a little bit. I thought, okay, black pen, you know, I'm going to draw with it. I know that these are waterproof, not only because it says, but also because experience tells me that I've used one of these pens enough times to know that as long as I leave it to dry and then to cure, so it sort of sets a little bit. And if you want to know about pens drying and curing, then Anita Pounder, who I know is in the room at the moment, she's the queen of this and has done an instructional video recently of a waterfall and some rocks where she was talking about this very thing. You'll find that on the SAA page, on the SAA Facebook page, by the way. As long as I let it dry and let it cure, then what happens is that I can wash my watercolour over the top. It's all fine and dandy. But a little voice inside my head went, Ali, do you really want to be using black for this? And so if we go back to the drawing as it is, as it stands at the moment, morning pen, if I go over this with black, it'll be all right. It'll be absolutely fine and dandy. But do I want black around the edges of softer shapes? So for example, my flowers, do I want them to look very outlined? I know I want there to be an outline because it saves my drawing. It makes it absolutely concrete before I start painting it. But do I want it to be black? No, I don't want it to be black. And here is the reason why I love Uni Pin as a brand, because they don't just do black, they don't just do brown, which is another decision. They do two different greys. Now they do a light grey, which I'm not a particular big fan of. What I am a massive fan of is this one, which is their dark grey. Now this is 0.5, so very similar to the other one. And okay, it might look similar, but look, it's very subtle change. This is quite a harsh colour, quite a harsh line, whereas the dark grey is a little bit more sympathetic and looks a little bit more like pencil. So what I can do, with the assistance of my, look at the state of that now, I need to treat myself to another putty rubber, don't I? What a shame. I'll have to go back shopping again on the SAA's website and find myself some new materials. that I don't need. I'm going to use this pen to go back over my lines, and then I can erase any extra pencil and it'll be all there for the taking. Now, I'm not, don't worry, don't think, oh, crikey, strap in everybody, because she's going to outline all of this. I'm not going to outline all of this with you sitting there today. I'm just going to do a little bit of it, and then between this week and next week, I'll link it all in. I'll see if I've got time to do a bit of a time-lapse video so that you can see me doing that, and then we can paint next week, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. So let's do just a few lines. Now, when we talk about mark making, when we're trying to describe something, I often say to you, use the Morse code method of drawing. Morse code being those kind of dots and dashes so that you have a nice broken line. That is not what I'm going to be doing today, because I'm not really worried about my brush or trying anything going over these lines. I want a nice continuous line, because this is more of an illustration than it is a fine art project. Jo is saying she uses the grey ones quite a bit. Yes, yeah, they're brilliant, aren't they? Morning, Anne. Lots of people saying late and stressed. Breathe, make yourself a coffee. Let me do a little bit of drawing for you, give you a bit of time out from your busy lives. So let's make our way around. Now, I'm not going to rush this. Why am I not going to rush this? Because potentially this is my final painting. I don't want to be messing it up, okay? So I'm going to do just a little bit at a time. Try not to clamp your hand onto the surface where you've got a very limited range of movement anyway. Try to do a bit of a line, stop, lift off, breathe, and then go back to it. So let's put that eye in. So you've got that going in, and we've got the little highlights. Now I'm going to let that dry before I go anywhere near it with an eraser. If I go into it with an eraser now, the chances are I'm going to smudge it. Then I'm going to have to draw it out all over again. So a bit of time is required just to have a think about what you're doing and why you're doing it. I'm making my bee to be continually fluffy. So I've got that kind of little scissor movement going on, and then I'm coming down this side. Now there comes a point where I'm not going to be standing on my head to try to draw this way, because that's insane. If you're left-handed, you will find that the right-hand side of things are much easier to draw. If you're right-handed, then you will find the left-hand side of things much easier to draw. So coming down this side, why I don't really want to do it from the outside because I'll lose the flow. So turn your piece of paper. That's another reason for not sticking it down, because if you've got it stuck to a board and you've got a great big heavy board, you've got to move the board around. So I just keep my pieces of paper nice and free, and then that way I can continue with my inking. Lots of you are saying that you would like this inking. This is the bit that's going to drive me nuts. Nuts, nuts, nuts. Because, as you know, I don't really do detail. I tend to shy away from it. But there we go. There's that bit inked in. Oh, let's do the eye while I'm there. And get that in. It's really hard to talk and do detail at the same time. Can I just let you know that? It's a challenge. And then let's do the antenna. Now again, here's a little handy inking hint. I find it really hard to draw continuous lines going across my body, no matter whether I'm going from right to left or left to right. I find that really tricky thing to do. It's much easier to do vertical lines. I get a lot more freedom in my arm look. Going that way, I've got a limited range of movement because my body is in the way. But this way, I've got a lot more range of movement. And then I'm working from my shoulder to make that movement, not my elbow or my wrist, okay, where you have very limited movement. Now Sue is saying, didn't realise you could get grey. I thought they were just black or sepia. Good. I'm glad that you've learnt that today. Martina is saying, I like using a dip pen with liquid inks. Yes, absolutely. I think if you've got those skills, Martina, that's brilliant. I'm a danger to myself with a dip pen and liquid inks because I can pretty much assure you that it will be flicked all over the surface, which is lovely if you want that effect, but not so great in terms of illustration. You obviously have greater skills than I do. So let's get this antenna in, And again, I'm not pressing too hard, because if I press too hard, don't forget I get that kind of skippity line. But also, if I press too hard, I'm actually much more likely to make a mistake, because if you press too hard and you make a mistake, your pen is going to across the surface. If you have a nice light touch to it and you kind of miss or hiccup or whatever it is, then because your pen is hovering above, you're probably not going to make a mark if you get jogged. Good morning, Thyra. Now, Rachel is saying, working from the elbow, always good. Yes, always good to have something associated with elbow, isn't it? Good morning, Janet. Okay, let's make our way around the corner and let's do the rest of this antenna coming down. So I've got that bit in there. So can you see the difference? The pencil line is great, and I could have painted it in with just the pencil, but I sort of feel like I've got a boundary now, a border, something to work to. And again, like I keep saying, this is an illustration project, not a fine art project. So I can paint by numbers. I can colour in between the lines. It's going to be a challenge for me because I've spent 20 years trying to teach myself not to colour in between the lines. But that's why you're all here, isn't it? To see the challenge. So let's get this antenna in. Now, I've said to you, didn't I, to not use a broken line. And I've done a broken line because that's my default setting. I've spent so long in my career going, don't make it a solid line, don't make it a solid line, that I wasn't concentrating and I've put gaps in it. But do you know what? Never mind. It's not the end of the world. And we'll come down here and get that part of the antenna in. So that is the start of me inking in. I've obviously got a long road ahead of me because I've got all of this to ink in, and I've got to do it very carefully. I would say, well, I don't know about you, but I would say that I can't ink all of this in one session because I lack patience. So I have a feeling what I will do is do a little bit, put it away, do something else, do a little bit, put it away, do something else. I lack patience in a big way. And also I genuinely think, do you remember in exams, you start writing, and then the closer you got to the end, you'd rush, wouldn't you? And your handwriting would get all scrappy, and it'd be really illegible because you knew you were kind of on the home straight making your way to the end. And I don't want that to happen with my B. I don't want to get hand cramp. I don't want to kind of be going, oh, I'm nearly there, I've just got these last few daisies to do, and then the last few daisies be really scrappy. So I'm going to do it a little bit at a time over the week. Like I said, I'll try and film a little bit time lapse for you as well, so that you can see me inking it in. And then what will happen is that next week we will come together. We will work on the background, the very distant, I think we decided that there was going to be a blue of sorts in there. We'll have a think about some brusho being sprinkled on. And then we maybe have time to think about the honeycomb too. Janet is asking, when does an illustration become fine art or vice versa? Janet, that is kind of a big question because everyone's going to have a different opinion on that. I would say myself, and this is only my opinion, let's get back so that I'm looking at you so I can talk to you. I would say that fine art is much more of an interpretation. I know you could argue that with this project, but it's much more to do with expressive mark making, using tools like a signature, like a hand drawing. Illustration is much more about the way that something is constructed to be its interpretation. So whether that's quirky or very linear or very descriptive. Because if you think about botanical painting, you could say that that is both fine art and an illustration. So there's always going to be things that fall between the cracks. And of course, if you think about the term illustration, it's usually to illustrate something. So that might be a text or a poster or something similar. So that's why my bead project really kind of falls within a grey area, because I'm drawing from illustration techniques in terms of inking and painting, but I'm kind of giving it a bit of a fine art spin because it's not really illustrating anything. It's not going with a story or book or words or music or any of those kind of things. It's just out of my funny old head and being put on paper. I hope that answers the question. It's a bit of a fuzzy one, and we could probably debate that for hours if I'm honest. Anne is saying, I'm amazed at your patience to do all that careful drawing. You certainly have far more than I have. I'm not sure that I do. I think it's because I'm doing it for a broadcast, and that if I was doing this on myself, I'd probably lost patience with it a long time ago. Joy is saying that she just joined late. We'll catch up with the beginning later. Absolutely, that's what Technique Tuesday is all about, isn't it? So that you can go and watch these broadcasts again. Now, I have a bit of news for you, okay, just before we part company today. Don't disappear. Don't disappear, because I'm about to give you a sneak peek of the new website. So don't start going, oh, she's finished painting, so I'll disappear. No, you've got to stay. The news that I have is that if you want the links for the Two Rivers paper, and you want to learn a little bit more about Two Rivers and the paper mill that it comes from, those links are over on the blog now. In about an hour's time, if you're watching this live on Tuesday the 10th, I will have uploaded this video to YouTube so that you can go over to the website and watch it back again if it's useful to you. Now, of course, just in case you've been living off-grid a little bit and you haven't heard my news, in a couple of weeks' time I will be launching a brand spanking new website, www.learningtopaint.co.uk. Why am I doing that? I'm doing that because that is going to be the part of my job where I house all of the tuition that I do, and Technique Tuesday is going to gravitate over there too. You'll be able to watch that anytime you like via the website, but if you want to watch it live in the same way that you're doing now, I won't be broadcasting on my Alison C. board page in future. I will be broadcasting over in my Learning to Paint community. So if you go to Facebook and you search for Learning to Paint with Alison C. board, you'll see that there's a group that pops up. And it's got a little Learning to Paint logo at the moment, purple, of course. All I need you to do is answer a few questions. It's just to make sure that I know it's you and not some random robot or somebody that I don't want to be part of the community. And it's things like, where do you think your skill level is? And you can be as honest or not as you like, what sort of media you're interested in. And we just have a few rules. It sounds very strict, but it's things like be courteous, be kind, check your copyright, all of those kind of things, so that we can keep that community as fun, as friendly, and as warm and welcoming as it is. And that is where I will be broadcasting Technique Tuesday from the 31st of August. So you've still got a couple of weeks. Now, do you want to see a sneak peek of the brand spanking new website? I have been working very hard on this. Every last little minute I have had spare, I've been doing on this. Here is, you ready? It feels like I need a drum roll. Here is the homepage of the new website. It's a completely different design for me. I have thought very long and hard about this. This is just me building it. I've had a bit of advice and assistance here and there, but essentially I have put this together. It has certainly enhanced my skills in terms of technology, but that's a little bit of a sneaky view as to what is to come. And there's going to be so much on there. There's going to be free resources, guides, photographs, inspiration, plus places where you can sign up for my tutorials and my workshops. There'll be video on demand. There'll be more about me and what makes me tick as an artist. So it's going to be chock-a-block with lots of information. It's going to be hopefully a place that you can return to again and again and again if you need a bit of a pick-me-up or a bit of advice, or you fancy joining me for one of my classes. So until I see you next week, we've got another one coming back next week. Like I said, we'll start painting next week. We'll start working with watercolours, brusho, and perhaps a little bit of gouache. So I can see lots of people liking the look of the new website. You are very, very kind. Very kind indeed. Until I see you next week, please do take lots of care of yourselves, won't you? Continue to look out for each other over on that Learning to Paint community, because it's really important that no matter where we are in the world, that we continue to look after each other and offer each other advice and support with our artistic projects. So until I see you next week, take lots of care, enjoy your painting, won't you? Enjoy the sunshine if you have it, and I will see you very soon. All right, lovely people. Bye.